Season 3, Episode 30, Decoded Podcast. I'm Roland. The dude sitting across from me with the red sweaters, Chris. If you're not watching, this is what it looks like. We had a great on-ramp this morning. I feel like we haven't spoken enough this week, and that's why the on-ramp went so long. But that's not the case at all. We've been communicating a lot this week.
It's maybe we were just moving information. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's part of the on-ramp. Part of the on-ramp was sort of talking some truths about the book club that you started up, and me saying I felt like I didn't push hard enough to kind of bring what I was thinking to I didn't go hard enough at what I actually want to say within the book club based on the chapters that we're reading this week. And I'm still kind of carrying, it's like low level regret, but I'm wishing that I don't know if it's kind of equal measures, regretting that I didn't say more, but maybe just that I didn't push harder. Like, I don't know if they would actually what I want to talk about in the book. So listeners, book club, the Nickel Boys, Colson Whitehead, great book, like just a great book. But some of the stuff that it lit up in me, I feel I have a couple kind of slightly negative feels. One, that I didn't have the tools I felt to actually say the words I wanted to say. So kind of like the tools to kind of bring my ideas together. But the second part is also just maybe the bravery, the courage to say what was kind of the mashup that I had. I mean, I had some tech difficulty too, so that kind of broke the flow a bit. That notwithstanding, maybe that's a little bit like where you and I were this week. I'll say maybe where I was this week. Like, I didn't connect beyond, like, there's so many layers to how you and I connect during the week, as far as the kind of like between text and Twitter and on Insta, maybe a phone call. We got the book club, so we got a lot of nice little kind of versions of us constantly connecting. Maybe it was just a lot of surface this week. And maybe that's what you feel at the end of the week, or the end of a couple of weeks, that thing that kind of makes you say, geez, I haven't connected with that person in a while, which is as much as being in the same space as it is sharing a good frequency. So we were in similar spaces throughout the week, digital hallways and otherwise, but maybe it was just the quality of the frequency wasn't what we were craving.
The digital hallways is a good point, because it reminds me that, yeah, I saw you. I walked past you, said, "What up? How's it going?"
Yeah. So,
and maybe you wanted to talk, but I was heading to the bathroom. Maybe I wanted to talk, and you're like, "I'm late from where I need to be now. I got to go." And so you're right. I think perhaps not getting into a deeper conversation or going deeper with what we were thinking or considering makes me feel like it was just all surface, didn't go down far enough.
Mm-hmm. Which, it happens. It's the ebb and flow of, let's say, relationships. I think that for me, what's going on when I think about just how, like, what my sort of world looks like with work and family and social connections in general, that I am craving more, I would say, more intense connections than that sort of the light frequency stuff. And you can't force that. It's not like you can, you stop someone and say, I really need to have a intentional conversation right now. All you can kind of do is kind of stretch those legs yourself and see if people are willing to jump in and have that kind of conversation. I think, where that's expressing itself in my operating system at large is me setting up a book club with my colleagues. Like, I think I'm craving in that space to get to know them at a more intentional and talk about it like through the book's experience. So that's kind of one of we talk about how the bigger, broader question, like how do you make friends? Like how do you go and make new relations and kind of fortify the relations that you have? So these individuals that are my colleagues, I'm hoping that, by participating in the book club together, that we will have, that we'll be able to get to like that bigger space of getting to know each other. That's my hope. But we'll see. I don't know. But I think I'm definitely thinking about right now what it means to go to try and get to stronger relationships, more intentional, and in doing so, finding more comfort in being brave myself and sharing stuff about me. Yeah, so much digital hallway work right now. It's really softening a lot of what feels like grind work, but it doesn't feel, it's intentional, but there's a weird kind of like energy with intentional that if it's not reciprocated, then it's hard to hang your hat on intentional. So if I take the work that I'm doing right now intentionally to make connections with my students, as an example, my intention is to provide support, compassion support, resource support, curricular support to my students. My intention drives me to, every morning I'm dropping I go for walks in the morning just as part of my own wellness, and I'll create a 2.5 minute video just of saying, hey, me checking in, happy to be here, hope you're doing well. Sometimes I'll drop some nuggets of knowledge on there, talk about different organizational tools or strategies, or I'll sort of paraphrase some of the conversation back to the students. Very much what you would do in the class. Kid raises a great point, great conversation happens, maybe you sort of roll it into your lesson. So I'm doing these little short videos, and I can see the number of views. So the interaction with my intention doesn't feel like there's the same reciprocal intention on the student side. And that is only an observation. There's no value judgment on it. And there's definitely no sort of like privilege blindness here where I'm sort of going over the edge and saying they should be there. I'm just noticing that they're not. I notice it because they're not in relation to when I would like them to be. They could be taking a peek at it, but not hitting play. Who knows? Like they're just not interacting. So, but I've started to think a lot about this intentionality. And even if your intentionality is to build that relationship deeper with your students, if it's not coming back, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And there's a whole lot of layers to this. It could be the email, emails aren't responded to. It could be that, you call. It could be that individuals miss a meeting. And I think I kind of wrapped my head around this and my feelings about it when maybe it was you and I texting, and the topic of not feeling like an effective teacher, and realizing that I have to kind of pull back from that and probably just keep grinding on, because in the absence of clear feedback that there's a better way to go about it, and I don't feel like I am taking in different people's methods, like different ways to connect with kids. I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm trying to diversify. The key element that just keeps on, I feel like, kicking me in the face here is not that we're engaged in distance learning. It's not the engagement in trying to make it work. It's just the distance. This is what happens in long distance relationships. This is what happens when you're no longer 6 feet from a person. This is what happens when there's no assurance that the 15, 20 kilometers that you're sort of like digitally traveling to make a connection with a kid, there's no assurance right now that that 15 to 20 kilometers, 30, 50 kilometers, who knows, a lot farther for me, I live quite a distance from the school, that's ever going to get back to under 6 feet again. And the whole edges of what I'm doing to build relationships with the students are really getting like kind of sanded down and difficult to hang on to, like to try and find how do I actually hang on to these relationships. And it's deflation. I get deflated. Like I don't know how to sort of pump apart from just dropping in, getting back to the grind, keep churning out the connections, work with the kids that show, maintain that stability of I'm still here for those that may drop in. I don't know. It was, I'll take it back to your start with this, feeling like you and I maybe you feel like we stop. That's a little bit like that's the water that I feel like I'm swimming in right now with my classes, that it just is not, there's not much meat left on the bones. I'm trying to, but I'm just like, there's not much meat left on the bones.
I'm not sure if you talked about that on purpose or not today, because you basically said in a really nice way what I was talking about in the on-ramp, but I wasn't saying it so politically correct. And so whether you did that on purpose or not, I don't know, but I appreciate it because I completely understand what you're talking about. That reciprocation. I just feel like people are skewing the numbers. We're providing information to people around what's happening in our classes and how we're working with our students. And I really feel like those numbers are being skewed. At a micro level, things are not playing out perhaps as well as they look at the macro level. And it's funny because I got the vibe from my colleagues that everything was fine and dandy with them. But over time, and with constant picking and digging, I now see that they are living similar to how I'm living, except they just chose to place their perspective in a different place. And that's fine, but I'm not alone. Yet I felt alone at one point, but I'm not alone. This whole thing has its challenges, and the thing I wanted to talk about with you before we kind of turned off the mics for today was around the new routines and the new way of living that has been established because of COVID-19. Like yesterday when I woke up and did my regular morning routine stuff, I thought, I am now hip deep in a new routine. Like I purposely thought back to what life was like before all this happened. And in some ways, I'm grateful for what's happening right now because it's given me a lot of time to reflect on who I am as a person, as a teacher, as a father. And it's slowed down life. Life has slowed to a point where I feel it's too slow. But before this happened, life was moving too fast. And it's like, where do you find the balance? How do you find the balance? So it's really interesting. But we've been in this long enough now. Hey, I got gas earlier this week. So I hadn't filled up my gas tank since like the week of March 9th. So I went from like, let's say March 9th all the way to I don't know, April 4th or 5th. I mean, May 4th or 5th. That to me is just friggin' incredible. That alone says so much. I was driving all the time, driving my kids around, driving to work, just driving everywhere all the time to not driving at all. And for some people, that's, when to me, that was a big deal when I thought about it, because I do enjoy driving. I do enjoy being in the car. And then to spend no time in there at all. Like, it was just so surreal to be getting gas. I hadn't done it in so long. And then when I was done pumping and I saw how much it cost, it was half of what I normally paid to fill my tank. Like, it's just weird. Just weird. And another thing about the way we're living life now, and I'm going to try to say this without judging anybody, but it might be hard, because I think the first nice day that we got, all of a sudden, people started gathering together again. And we went for a family walk, and we were flabbergasted. People getting together. We saw groups of people, and we're like, guys, this isn't over. It's just a nice day. And my wife was like, should we even be out here? I'm like, there's 4 of us. We live together. We're going for a walk. We're not going to so-and-so's house and just letting go of everything we've learned over the past weeks on how to function so that, we can flatten the curve. We're not doing any of that. We're just walking. These people are stopping and getting closer than 2 meters to each other. And then the kicker was there were kids outside my house. So I looked out the window, and they were together. There was like 4 kids, neighborhood kids. They were all really close to each other, and they were going to come call on my son to come out and play with them. And I noticed some people listening to this, they're like, what's the big deal? Man, the big deal is we're not supposed to be that close to each other right now. We're supposed to be physically distanced, 2 meters apart. There's a reason for that. And then the real kicker, so my little brain is thinking, okay, this is the universe's way of continuing to herd the group. We're going to lose people because of this. A beautiful day comes, and everybody decides, it's fine. We can all hang out again. And now kids are playing with each other. The kids in my neighborhood I see them playing outside all the time now. They're riding their bikes. They're coming in close proximity to each other. It's like the parents think, the kids are immune because this doesn't really show itself in kids. And then a couple of days later, there's an article that my wife shared with me that with COVID-19, there's been a rise of Kawasaki disease cases. And I'm not going to blurb too much about Kawasaki disease right now, but to tell you that my youngest had Kawasaki disease. So it's an issue that could damage your heart. It can kill you. And we're now seeing there's been a rise of Kawasaki cases since COVID-19. So Kawasaki disease happens in kids. So right away, I'm like, this is great. So everybody's like, the kids are fine. The kids are fine. The kids are fine. The universe is like, no, the kids aren't fine. And this is now what's going to happen to the kids. They don't get COVID-19 the way we do, but perhaps COVID-19 does something to them to unmask or to set off Kawasaki disease, which in and of itself can be deadly and can have long-term effects on a child and their health and well-being. So my wife and I already know that. And my wife and I already were like I ended up opening the door because I could tell the kids were talking about who was going to come up to the door to ask my son to come out and play. So I opened the door. It was funny. 3 of them took off like they were doing something wrong. And one just stared at me, and I'm like, he's not coming out today. He's doing something inside. And she was like, okay. And I was like, okay, see ya. I closed the door and she left. But they've been playing outside ever since that day, these kids. And I'm like, your parents are okay with this? Like, people are begging to go back to work and school and to go buy their video games at the store or whatever. But they won't do what's necessary to be able to get back out there to do all that stuff. Whatever their beliefs are, I don't know. I just know that curve's going to go back up because Mother Nature decides it's time for spring. But really, I mean, it's May 9th and it's snowing here. So Mother Nature's like, okay, everybody go back into your house. I truly believe there I do believe things are tied together. I do believe that things are happening for a reason. I don't know the depth of that, the percentage of how much of that is really real to me and really not. But I do believe there's something to be said about the weather got nice and people decided, okay, well, I'm sick of being in my house. I'm going to go out. And then they started to get too close to each other. And then I read this article about the kids and Kawasaki disease. And let me tell you something, Kawasaki disease is not normally in the media. So the fact that someone has been like, whoa, what do you mean there's kids coming in with all these symptoms? That's a really deadly disease. And we've got more of those cases now than we did before. Like, it's interesting to look at the connections. There may not be any connections, but it sure seems to look that way. And I just shake my head. Like, I know people think I'm crazy. I know people are like, what do you mean? Like, I know some people that don't believe in this at all. They don't believe what's happening is a big deal at all. And I'm like, people are dying. And it doesn't matter if they're old people who are dying. They're still dying. Something's happening and it's taking lives, and you're pretending like it's no big deal. The way this thing affects certain people and doesn't affect other people is just whacked. It's totally whacked. And then to watch all these videos of how kids are going back to school. I said it online, I'll say it here too. I guess we just care more about the economy than we do about human life. Why aren't people just saying it? Why don't people just say, we need to get kids back in school, because we pretend like we care that they need an education. I don't believe that they do. I think that they're putting all their eggs are in the basket of the economy. We need to send parents back to work to get work done so we can get the economy moving. People can't always work from home. I get that. So what are we going to do? We're just going to throw everything at COVID and let it kill a bunch more people before it goes away, I guess. And you know what? I sit in a chair of privilege. I'm a teacher. So I'm teaching from home. I'm getting paid. I'm not worried. We're all in the same storm, but we're all in a different boat. I'm on a yacht, so I'm not worried. But I tell you that there's going to be a lot more damage done to this society because we are deciding that the economy is more important than people's safety. And so we're going to send kids back to school with this whacked out way of operating at school. Some of these videos are humorous. You watch them and you think, is this for real or is this a joke? They're real. They're real. You got principals and teachers making videos to prepare kids for what it's going to look like when we go to school. And then the next thing I thought was, what are we going to do about all the kids that don't follow any of these precautions? Because now they're putting everybody at risk. Or how would people like it if I didn't follow any of those precautions? I'm just sitting right beside my kids doing a conference like I would normally do back in the day. And now I'm doing it here. Is anybody going to say anything? Probably not, to be honest with you. They're just going to be happy kids. They're back in school and I'm doing my job. They're doing their job. But then watch me get something or watch me give something to a kid and something happens to that kid. Like, I don't think people are thinking it through. I don't think they are. I think we need to hear from people who have had family members pass because of this and to say, this is no joke. My uncle's gone. My aunt's gone. My husband's gone because people didn't, my loved one caught this thing and is dead now. Like, I don't think people, if you don't experience it, you don't care. I'm trying not to be that guy. I don't need to experience it. I don't want anybody in my family or close to me die for me then to care. I'd love my kids to be back in school, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I want to send my kids back to school this year, personally. But I'm going to have to go back to school. Like, I'll go because it's my job, but what if I don't need to send my kids? I just feel like we've been given an opportunity to do the right thing. And there are people who don't want to do the right thing because they don't believe that it's the right thing. They don't see the big deal. they're probably sick and tired of being with their kids and having to teach their kids. Like, I think you and I have had this conversation. There's been one day over the last 2 weeks, one day a week, where I've said to my youngest, I usually work with him. No, most of the time I work with my youngest, my wife versus my oldest. I said, okay, crack open the Chromebook, read the instructions for the day. So he does it, and then he moseys around. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm like, go sit down and start the work. Well, no, start the work. I'll be with you. I got to do this now, and I'll come and check in on you. But doesn't mean you don't start. Then I go and I look at his work without any guidance. And he's a smart kid. He's a hard worker. And I look at his work. I'm like, why didn't you do 2A? Well, I didn't see it. And I'm like, this is why parents need to sit with their kids, because your kid's 9. And unless they're kind of straight A Doogie Howser, they're going to need some kind of support, just like a teacher does to a 9-year-old at school. I mean, and that's if you care. You may not care. You may just like, hey, kid, do your work, hand it in, and let's move on. And you know what? I'm getting some of those. I'm looking at the responses I'm getting from my students, and I know nobody's sitting with them. And don't get me wrong. I'm not, what I'm saying to you is, as a teacher, as a father, I'm looking at the work of my 8-year-olds, and I'm like, yeah, nobody's sitting with you. That's why you gave me this response. That's why you didn't put any effort into this work. And you can't tell me I don't know my kids. I know my students well. And I've been pushing back on the ones that I know that I've been pushing back all year to get quality work from them. And I recognize this is a different time, a different place. So I'm pushing in a different way, but I'm still pushing. I'm saying this is unacceptable. You didn't do this, this, and this. These are all things that we commonly do, and you know it. So why aren't you doing it? And then whatever response I get, I deal with. And I've had some good responses. I've had I've had some moments where the kid is like, I was working, my brother grabbed the computer, said, you're done. I'm doing my work now. And I get that power system in a house. I get it. I see it all the time here. And so I feel for the kid. And then what I see is the next time the kid gets the computer, hours later, when the brother's doing something else, they fix their work. And I'm like, hey, this is all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for the world. I'm asking for an honest effort. So now you got me ranting on this whole thing and how it's kind of shifted everything upside down. And I'm going to end with, I really feel like some people just don't care. And it saddens me that they don't care. And it saddens me that they're willing to send their kids back to a place where, what if I have COVID? What if I give it to your kid? You're cool with that? So your kid doesn't show symptoms of COVID, but all of a sudden shows symptoms of Kawasaki disease? That's not cool. And then you'll be screaming from the mountaintop, how did my kid get this? Well, you sent your kid back to school with 300 people and a whack of staff that we don't know where they've been or what they're doing. And maybe your kid doesn't follow any of the rules that we've established, any of the tape lines, just walks right up to people, starts talking to them, getting in their face. I'm just telling you, I work in a school. I know what it looks like when they're picking their noses and they're blowing their noses and they're sneezing everywhere. And now we're going to protect for this? That's all I'm saying. And I hope I said it in a relatively respectful way, because I don't mean to disrespect anybody. I don't mean to. I'm just telling you how I feel, and I'm worried. I'm worried that we're putting things in front of us that when we look back are not going to be as important as the safety of us, not just kids, of everybody, and the mental health of people. I just don't think we're giving it. The people in power are, I know our people in power are being pushed to move this thing. I get it. But they need to think of safety. There you go, Chris. You can have the final word before we shut down. Season 3, episode 30.
It's I've just a lot of different landing spots. So one, personally, Karen and I had the conversation this week because there are kids on the street that we've observed that their crews are getting bigger. So we sort of noticed in the beginning, people were kind of staying on their lawns. You could hear kids playing, it was like yards, backyards, then lawns, then noticing that other kids are playing on the lawns, then sort of like toys and gear bouncing across the street to someone else's lawn, then someone kind of going across the street so stuff would kind of be left and not touched, which was interesting. There was stuff that was out there that would just be kind of, because it made it across the street, you're not going to get it. Sorry, your ball goes over the fence, you're not going to get it. And then we see some of these clusters of kids that are now kind of crewing up, and they're now playing with each other, like they are sort of out on the street playing. And then, you know, this is all kind of just casual observation until we have to correct our own kid to say, sorry, all you get to do when you go outside is you ride your bike, and you just keep riding your bike. That's it. You're going to ride your bike. That's it. You don't get to stop. If you stop, you're stopping by yourself, or you're stopping in our driveway. But sorry, little dude, you're just going to keep on riding. And it's interesting to sort of see how the limits are being kind of pushed in a lot of different spaces, right? The sort of and no one's really saying everything's okay, but we're kind of inverting the evidence and saying, well, things must be okay because people are out there doing normal things, which all that really means is, like what you're kind of observing, people are breaking the rules, right? And then depending on who observes it and how they're feeling in that particular moment, they roll with it. They're like, well, if other people are, then we can too. It's the sort of my homeworld observation. Second observation is around connecting with a few people digitally. So I've had a really great Twitter conversation with a teacher in Quebec, and their classes are coming back in next week. So this individual was sort of posting out her thoughts and a picture of her classroom. She's going to have to start 6 kids in her class. She's elementary, and her class cohort, like the space that she's working out of, is K-2. K-2. So the students that are coming in are going to be a mix of K-2, limit of 6 kids. I was asking this individual some questions around, you know, what's their union's perspective, and whether or not this teacher asked her flat out, are you going to be wearing PPE? What's that sort of look like? And it was interesting. Like, there's not, she said, you know, there's the union is not supporting the opening. The union is saying it's okay to wear PPE if that's what you feel. She doesn't know if she's going to wear PPE. So that's kind of where we landed there. And the final one, and I don't think you and I got a chance to really kind of flesh this one out. And I don't want to go too far, but it was really interesting. Maybe it was just last week, where there was a post online from an individual that said, I think it was actually the week before this week. Maybe it was like on the Friday, but they posted up a picture of their classroom, and they just kind of flatly said, here's my classroom ready for 21 kids. With the spacing that this teacher had put together. And, you know, there was a bit of a platitude on the end of the post saying, you know, we can do this, we can do this, we can make this work. And right away, so many people dogpiled on it. They sort of slamming not only the individual, but also slamming the philosophical switch up and the moral switch up and this should not be done, this is dangerous. Then there were people like posting the memes and the gifs, just like flat out ridiculing the individual and the idea of schools opening. So, you know, this is a lesson that I've taken from you. Like, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to see if their DMs are open. So I DM the teacher, and it's a teacher that, you know, I'm going to avoid the name drop right now, because it was not cool how many people that really just went for the throat and not really went for any conversation or enlightenment. But here's how it rolls out. No one really noticed that this individual was not posting from North America, first. Second, no one reached out to converse with the individual to find out. One of the facts is that the government is pushing this through. The government made this decision. This is an educator that has been left with having to deal with like health unit kind of strategizing. And every teacher in the same, just like this Quebec teacher that I was talking to, they're having to figure out what it means to deliver curriculum within a medical emergency framework, which none of us are trained for at faculty, right? We're all kind of imagining what's the best step. And every health unit, of course, is playing hand in hand with the, each of the jurisdictions and boards. Of course, they're providing the support. But in these two other cases, the Ministry of Health or the local health unit is not in the classroom telling you, yes, you are on the right track. This is perfect. It's the teachers that are having to decide whether or not the steps that they're taking are actually going to protect the students. And that's mind-blowing to me that is actually on our shoulders. So the final thing to this, that this teacher posted, the one that was posting from outside of North America, I mean, they were great to talk to. They said, I appreciate the conversation. So many people are just kind of like being unkind. And this individual has said that I'm not engaging in arguments here. But what they ended up doing, and this is what was fascinating, and maybe this is just the real dark side of social media, they went back in and added to their post a postscript, basically saying, by the way, I don't have a choice here. The government has made this decision for us to open schools. This is a government mandated opening, and I'm gonna have to roll with it. And I reached out to the individual just midweek this week just to see how they're doing. And they said, it is as I posted. We're trying to make sense of this. We're trying to sort of do what's best. I didn't push into, asking questions about their specific wellness. I don't know the person. I mean, honesty and being polite, grace on social media is the first step to building a relationship. I haven't sort of moved it farther to ask very, direct questions, but to get beyond the cloud, I feel like this person is doing the best that they can, given the fact that the government is pushing it through. And I got to be honest, I really do feel like our own Ministry of Education is watching to see what is prototyped on the backs of the teachers in Quebec. I am. Now in Quebec, it's voluntary, so parents don't have to send the kids back. So I asked the individual, I said, can you opt out? And the teachers cannot opt out unless they have, what did they say, a pre-identified health concern, or a health concern that has resulted from the current health situation. So this stuff is moving quickly around us. We don't have time to get into, what Lecce's announcement yesterday, late afternoon, about the ministry's expectations for deeper web conferencing and one-to-one stuff. Because I feel like somebody is just way too comfortable with thinking about existing in the next without really paying attention to the current. What is the challenge that's still what's that Tom Clancy movie, Clear and Present Danger? What is the thing that's right in front of us, right? Going with the Jack Ryan reference.
It's not a bad way to end.
It's not a bad, yeah.
I'm going to use your call sign, Clank.
Clank.
You could be my wingman anytime.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Thanks for a great conversation.
Yeah, this is, I feel like this is like, somehow it's like the episode where stuff is happening. Like this is stuff is happening, folks. Stuff is just happening. Pay attention, but stuff is happening.
I hope you guys, your family has a great Mother's Day. Wishing all mothers out there a happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, there's some good feels. That's a good mention. Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
That's what I've been looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. I got to actually run out and pick up some stuff that I ordered. So it is always funny to sort of bring something in from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always the possibility, I'll say flat out, there's the possibility what I'm bringing in, the mother in the house might say, oh, you got that from out there.
Yeah.
The outside. I got it from the outside.
Right on, buddy.
I'll show you. It's funny. I didn't finish, dude.
That's okay.
you want to see what I got though?
I'd love to.
Yeah, I just kind of, it's funny. It's when we talk about preparedness. So it's not, now we're in the Walking Dead clank because, you know, like we kind of mentioned, I tried using clank this week for our book club. And I knew this morning I wouldn't be able to use it. So I'm actually up in the office. So I don't have any of my art supplies. So I went old school.
I love it. What are those letters all around us?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's just
Looks good.
decoded. Well, it's a thing. Using what I got here. So I'll finish this one up and post it up.
Right on.
Dude, I appreciate you. Thanks for the combo. Happy to connect with you again this week.
And the same goes to you from me.
Ciao, man.
See ya.